My sister-in-law thinks that she can just drop off her demon children and make me babysit them. Guys, these kids are monsters, absolutely destructive, and they won't listen to a word that I say. So, when she doesn't listen to me and drops her kids off anyways, I do this. Some people are just so self-centered that all they see is themselves. They are the ones who take others for granted, so sometimes it's important to put them in their place. I'm also in a similar situation with my sister, where, well, she just feels she's entitled to help I provide. Instead of acknowledging my help, she instead criticizes me for getting better at it. Huh? I'm 26 years old, and I have a sister who's 10 years older than me. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Everyone says the same. 10 years age gap? We have a brother in between who's exactly 5 years older than me, and 5 years younger than my sister. Everyone says that our parents planned us meticulously. My sister Lori has 3 children, 7, 6, and 4. And they're all spoiled to the core. No, I'm not being judgmental. I'll tell you in deep detail, and then the cute images of these 3 children would turn out to be the devil, you see. So Lori and I stay in the same city, whereas my parents and brother stay in our hometown, some 500 miles away. She moved to this city after her marriage, and I came here for college and then stayed as I got a job in the city. So you see, she has no other family member in the town besides me. It's a no-brainer that I've been her to-go-to babysitter for the last 7 years, since her first child was born. When she got pregnant with her first child, I was still a teenager. I was so excited to be an aunt that I almost nursed my sister for her entire pregnancy. And when the baby was born, I felt like his second mother. I happily volunteered to babysit him whenever my sister needed me. Sometimes, even when she did not need it, I used to show up and take care of the baby and just give some off time to my sister to relax. I guess I have dug my own grave. My sister took me for granted, but I was too young and naive to understand that. I did not realize that it was going to create a problem for me. Soon, my sister got pregnant with another one, and then the next one. I inevitably became the babysitter for all of them. I would lie if I said I liked babysitting 3 kids, but since I was doing it for the older one, I had to do it for the other 2. Not to sound rude, but you know, the excitement of a teenage girl to become an aunt soon vanishes when she's forced to become a nanny for 3. The excitement soon turns into punishment. Besides, I was in college back when her oldest son was born, so I had enough time and energy to spare for him. In fact, I was happy to help her until I was in college and even early in my career. But ever since I switched companies 2 years ago, my work life has become very hectic and I barely get any time for myself. Of course, the pay is unquestionably high compared to my first job, hence the workload is absolutely justified. So, the point is, I barely get time for myself, and on top of that, Lori expects me to babysit her 3 kids at least twice a month. This is one aspect of my problem. The other issue is that kids are growing and they're becoming notorious monsters. They're 7, 6, and 4 currently, and can you imagine the chaos they can bring together? I have a taste for fancy glassware and antique showpieces, and after I switched to a better-paying job, I've gathered some significant collection of votives, candle holders, flower vases for my living room, along with a limited collection of a single stone-carved Buddha statue, and other glass statues as well. So you can well understand my pain when Lori visits my house with her children. I may sound evil, but many a time, when Lori says that she'll be visiting me, I proactively go to her place in order to avoid them coming to mine. I always told her I was around her house, so I came instead. I started doing this when Lori was on a 2-day trip for more than a year ago. It was during that time that I started gathering glass and antique decor for my home. Those 2 days were just enough for her children to bring down my home. They broke, damaged, 50% of my glass kitchen utensils and dinner plates, and I don't know what fetish they have for the kitchen items that all three of them played with. No matter what toys I gave them to distract them from the kitchen, they looked for opportunities to sneak into the kitchen and create havoc. Even if they kept all the plates and glasses aside, the older ones were quite tall and wise enough to use a chair and climb up and fetch whatever they needed. My concern was not only the damage to the glass, but also to their safety. Any of them could hurt themselves with those broken pieces, and then I would be charged with child negligence, irresponsibility, and whatnot. Those 2 days were literally a nightmare for me. She used to occasionally leave her kids with me for a few hours, and it was still bearable, but those 2 days were horrible. I learned my lessons well, and the next time Lori asked me to babysit her kids while she was going on her anniversary vacation, I told her that I would be staying at her house rather than bringing the kids to mine. It was again 3 days of trauma for me. But the slightly better part was that my sister's house was designed to be child-proof, so the kids were not able to do that much damage in their house. Besides, it was her house, and even if her kids broke something, I was a little bit less hurt, because after all, it was her kids breaking the stuff at their own house. When my sister returned, she was upset at her decision to let the children stay with me at their house. She told me that I was reckless in taking care of the kids because it was not my home. I got so mad at her allegation that I told her I would not babysit her children anymore. Prior to this incident, I used to babysit her kids at her house, but it was for a few hours or half a day, so the damage was not that much. A couple of hours is acceptable to distract the kids by playing some games or hooking them up to the TV or iPad. Sorry for that, but I could not help. But during her 3-day anniversary trip, her kids damaged some significant items in the house. I'm talking flower vases, dinner plates, and to be honest, although I tried my best to stop the kids from causing any damage, somewhere inside, I wanted Lori to understand how pampered and monstrous her kids were. She had never tried to teach them proper manners, neither does she let others do so. If sometimes I raise my voice when the kids behave notoriously, she intervenes and says that her kids need to be schooled and they will learn everything as they grow. We're not bitter after the incident, and I still used to visit her occasionally, but it's been more than 6 months now since she asked me to babysit her kids. Not even for a few hours, and I thank goodness that I told her on her face that day. So now the problem is that last week she came to visit me with snacks and drinks, and it's quite unusual for her to do so because she's never done that before. When I asked her about it, she said that she had visited Walmart on the last day and picked up a few snacks and drinks for me as well. Anyways, during the conversation, she told me that she and her husband want to spend some quality time alone with each other. Hence, they want me to take care of the kids in the meantime. Although I have no intention of babysitting her kids, I asked her how many days they plan to go on vacation. She said that they weren't going on vacation. Instead, they were planning for some quality time alone at home. So I should keep the kids with me, that too, for a whole week. I went into panic mode. Yet I tried to play it safe initially, and I told her the kids would miss school if they stayed at my place because their school was far from my house. She assured me that the children were having their summer vacation, hence they've planned it during this time so that their studies are not impacted. I turned pale, and it was evident on my face I had no other option but to tell her face to face that I would not be able to babysit her children this time. I was expecting her to be very angry, but instead she starts sobbing. She confessed that her marriage was in absolute shambles because she was so busy with the kids that she barely had any time left for her husband. She said that her marriage was losing its spark and that she needed that time to get it back on track. Well, I was shocked to know that marriages can suffer because of children. I thought that children strengthen the bonds between a husband and a wife. But what I heard from Lori was otherwise. She told me that indeed children strengthen a marriage, but sometimes, when one of the parents spend too much time on the children, cutting short the couple's time, the marriage suffers. In her case, since she was a stay-at-home mom, she had to take care of her kids, which left her with no time to spare for her husband. She was either busy with the children or, tired after a hectic day of taking care of them. I wasn't very sure of her reasoning, so I went online to check if this was true, and it is to some extent. I read so many posts where the husband or wife cheated because the other one was too busy raising the kids. And more often than not, it's the women who end up being the victim. Now the thing is, no matter how difficult it is to handle her children, I would never want my sister's marriage to crumble. I know it's going to be really difficult for me to manage the kids for one whole week, but I don't know if I have any other options beyond saying yes. As of now, I have told her I will have to speak to my boss for a week-long leave. Hence, I cannot commit to her right away. By doing this, I've had some time to think about it. I spoke to my manager, since the workload is low at this point in time, and I've not taken any long leaves this year. My manager did not object to the week's leave, and a few hours ago, before this post, Lori called me to check on my decision. I wanted to tell her that my leave was not approved because of the high workload, but I just could not. I somehow felt guilty for lying to her. God forbids me if her marriage breaks, and I'll not be able to forgive myself. I genuinely want to help her, but I know her kids are going to create a ruckus at my house. Hence, I'm still in two minds. I also know that if I decline to help her, our sisterly bond will definitely perish, and I really don't want to do that. I'm looking for genuine advice from anyone who has encountered a similar situation. Thank you. Update number 1. Hey guys, I've got to know from the comments that some of you are waiting for an update, so here it is. Thank you for the advice. As some of you commented, my original post clearly indicated that I was inclined to help my sister. As you all guessed, I did end up babysitting her 3 kids for a week. Before their arrival, I had to make my house baby-proof and remove all the glass showpieces and flower vases. I also replaced my glassware with plastic ones, just to avoid any damage. I won't get into the details of what happened in the 5 days, but I'll provide a list of catastrophes the children caused at my house. On day 1, they threw a brass flower vase on my TV and paralyzed it. Not the vase, of course, but the TV. This happened within a few hours on day 1, and you can well imagine my horror for the next 5 days. When the TV broke, I panicked because it was my recent purchase of $560, and I'll still be paying the EMI on it. I started reading its insurance papers to check whether the damage was covered, but the horror at the moment was also finding an alternate device to distract them with. I usually don't let them touch my iPad or my phone, but that day, I had no option but to keep them distracted. They aren't that attentive to the games. Lori dropped a bunch of games and toys at my place to entertain the kids, but nothing can hook up today's kids more than a screen. I gave them the iPad. But I broke my sister's rule of not raising my voice to the children. I threatened them that I would call a dinosaur on them if they did any further mischief. Come on, they're kids. They aren't afraid of the police, but dinosaurs? Oh boy. I also raised my voice for the 2 older ones and aptly schooled them. Thankfully, the next couple of days were comparatively peaceful, not in terms of noise, but nothing major broke. I was proud of myself. Just then, I heard a sharp smashing noise in my living room. I realized that while I was making dinner and engaging with the elder 2 nephews, my youngest niece sneaked out of the room and wandered alone into the house. She then went to the living room and pulled the cover of the Buddha statue out of curiosity, and bam! The single stone-carved Buddha statue was lying on the floor in multiple Buddha pieces. But thankfully, it fell towards the side of the table and not towards her. I was so shocked at the sight that I started crying. This time I was terrified to the core to imagine what would have happened if the statue fell on my niece. I would have been jailed or something, I don't know. When they saw me crying, the older ones confessed that they've been trying to pull the statue for the last 3 days, and their sister had been watching it, since the statue was heavy. It took a lot of shaking and pulling to finally get the job done. I lost my mind when they said all this, and I yelled at them with all my might and even threatened to leave them with the monsters in my backyard at night. They were quiet and peaceful for the rest of the day after that. For the statue incident, I somehow blamed myself for not being careful enough. The next day, when the 3 of them were watching something on the iPad, some disagreement occurred between them, and the middle kid got furious and threw my laptop on the dining table. That scene was like a flying disc. It happened right in front of me when I saw my $750 iPad flying from the couch and landing on the dining table, creating a dent into the dining table, and well, it was made of glass and then bouncing back on the floor. That created a dent in my heart that was a penny drop for me as I saw my iPad screen crash in front of me. I won't lie, I wanted to beat those monsters black and blue, but I somehow controlled myself, smiled my teeth at them, and yelled at them. I got so mad at them that I could not bear to spend a minute with them. I called up my sister and told her to take back her children because it was already 4 days, and I was not able to put up with them. When I narrated to her the catastrophic behavior of her children, she starts laughing and said that last week they spilled a hot soup of her husband's MacBook worth $1,000. I didn't find it funny at all. I told her whatever it was, I would not keep her children anymore. Well, she thought I was just angry in the moment and would calm down in a while, but I kept calling her every hour on the hour, asking her to pick up her children, or else I would drop them off myself. When she arrived, she found that her children were peacefully engrossed in their games, and when they saw their mother, they returned to their naughty selves and started nagging about how I scolded and threatened them. They told her everything that I've done to school them. I wasn't even embarrassed. Her kids needed to be schooled. I showed her all the damage her children had done in the last 4 days, and instead of acknowledging my anger, she starts to yell at me for schooling her children. She said that I had no right to raise my voice at them, and she starts to threaten me that she would have sued me if the child was hurt due to the statue falling on him. I should thank my lucky stars that it didn't. She went on to say how horrible it was to shout at children and how awful of a mother I've become. My children would hate me and abandon me, and my husband would divorce me for being such a jerk. I could not take her words any longer, so I went to my room and slammed it from the inside, and she left shortly after. I'm ultimately left with a filth of guilt, of letting her down, fear of what might have happened if the statue fell on the poor toddler, and anger that she blamed me for everything despite it being I who lost my TV, iPad, and my precious Buddha statue. I don't know how I should be feeling about it. No matter how hard I try, I'm just not able to get over it. After reading my update, if somebody says that I'm just posting it to get validation from you all, well then you're probably right. I am. Update number 2. Hey, thanks for the lovely support and especially the advice regarding the insurance claim on the TV and iPad. It was helpful. My mind was so heavy with the incident that I had to take a further 2 days off and get, my head on track. It's been about a month since the incident. Lori and I are not on speaking terms with each other, and neither she nor I contacted each other. I wanted to visit her, but I thought to her, let the anger pass away. But last week, something happened that raked my mind with anger. My mother called me, and out of the blue, she suggested that I practice yoga and meditation and calm down my mind. When I asked her where this was coming from, she told me that in the next few years I'll be married and have kids. Hence, it's crucial for me to be a patient with others. I directly asked her if Lori had told her anything. She said yes. She told me everything that happened during the kids' summer vacation at my house, and I tried to tell my side of the story to Mom, but it looked like Lori had already done a great job of manipulating her against me. My mother informed me that Lori was so mad that I tried to discipline her children. She told my mom that I was materialistic and all I cared for was money. I hung up the phone because I was so annoyed. Wow, I knew Lori was going to stop at that. Yeah, she would tell everyone in the family, everyone about this, and use every opportunity to belittle me. I had to do something about it, so I used her allegation as my strength. I calculated the damage her kids have done to my house in the last 2 days, and you won't believe it, it came out to be close to $12,000. The damage they caused on the last trip was about $8,500. The television, insurance, iPad, Buddha statue, I gathered all the previous and new bills, and I emailed a statement to Lori. I told her that she had labeled me as a materialistic person, right? So be it. I demanded that she pays that amount, and she immediately called me, and as soon as I received her call, she starts yelling at me. She told me that I was pathetic for sending her the bills, and I cut her off midway and told her that I had tried to move on with the loss, but it was she who was portraying me as the evil villain in front of the family and relatives. I also told her that I was going to post the bill in the family group chat and let everyone know how monstrous her children are. I gave her the warning that whatever happened, I was never going to babysit her children in the future. And when the rest of her friends got to know of how capable her children were, they too would never opt to take care of her children, and then she became silent. I also went on to say that I could take her to court for not paying for the damage her kids have done, but I'm still considering our siblings' bond to be above money. When I was done venting, I hung up the phone. I actually felt better after that. The anger and frustration were opening up inside me, and it was killing me. Anyways, I feel better after the conversation, and it's been a few days, but Lori has not contacted me again. Neither did I hear anything from my mother or anyone else, so I guess she served well. I did not intend to get any money for the damage, but I wanted her to understand that she had taken me for granted. I'll update if anything develops. Update number 3. Final update. Hey guys, I know it's been a long time, but nothing worth updating has happened until recently. So after the phone calls, as expected, the relationship between Lori and me soured. We did not talk to each other or visit. I felt relieved that I was able to spend the weekend by myself. I started dating my colleague, so I had very little time to think about Lori and her children anyways. It was then that I realized that I was wasting so much of my time on her children, the time I should be investing in myself by traveling or meeting new people. Anyways, fast forward to last week. My mother called me to tell me that Lori's husband was expecting a promotion at work. So Lori had organized a party for her husband's boss and colleagues, and, in order to impress them. My parents and brothers were also invited, but I wasn't. That's not the point anyways. The arrangements were top-notch. But she forgot to discipline her children, so they did what they thought they were doing best. A ruckus. Soon after the guests arrived and Lori and her husband got busy attending to them, the children started showing their devil selves. They started pulling the flower decorations, disturbing the musicians, and spilling the food on the guests' clothing, and at the end, the youngest one pulled down and smashed the giant cake Lori's husband ordered to celebrate his boss's post-anniversary. When my mother narrated how Lori's youngest daughter pulled the cake off the table, I remembered that she did the same thing with my Buddha statue. I was rolling on the floor laughing over it, imagining the horror on Lori's face. My parents rooted with me after seeing the horror that night. The thing is that they live in a different city, and they've never spent a day with Lori's children apart from the time that they were very young, so they don't know how naughty the children can be. Not to sound cynical or sadistic, but I was delighted to know that Lori's children displayed their true selves in front of everyone. I hope Lori learns from the incident and tries to discipline her children. At least from now onward, it is still not too late. Okay, so the end of this story was pure gold. I mean, if it wasn't for this giant party though, where the kids acted a mess and end up destroying the cake in the same fashion they destroyed the Buddha statue, I don't think the family would have recognized how truly horrendous this situation was for OP. And $12,000 worth of damage? That alone is absolutely absurd. Guys, have you ever been in a situation like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. Thank you for joining me today. I narrate stories every single day. I hope to see you tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!